Have you ever wondered how the pros are so fast to think on the fly and just always know the right play? Well, truth be told, they don't, and it's actually something else that's carrying their decision making. What's going on, ProGuides fam? It's your host Kangas, and today we're entering our 11th week of Improvement Saturdays, where every Saturday we break down an important aspect of tactical FPS games so that you can better understand Valorant at a higher level. Today's topic is something that isn't often talked about outside of team environments, but is crucial to any Valorant player's decision making as well as just thinking on the fly. A lot of people think that pros are some sort of superhuman beings that were just born to play Valorant and usually other games, but the reality is they're not. They also started out in the bottom, gradually climbing up the ranks, but through learning and adapting to every challenge, they eventually made it to the top, playing at the highest level with the pro team. So today's focus will be on how they learned and adapted. Oh, and here's a hint, it's not just about good game sense and aim. What we're going to cover is the mental theory crafting before any play is made, which are called protocols. So you might be wondering, what are protocols? Well, protocols are set reactions or prepared ways to achieve goals or deal with situations. So basically, it's just not coming up with a play or reaction mid-game or even on the fly, but rather planned reactions or actions to deal with possibilities that you might see in the game. In order to set up protocols effectively and make sure that your protocols are actually accomplishing something, you should first have an idea of what you want to achieve. Let's give you an example. Let's say you're playing my favorite character, Killjoy, on Ascent B site. What's your plan? I know some of you might instantly say, hold the bomb site, as that's a pretty instinctive reaction. But honestly, it can get more complicated than that. For example, if you have your ult, wouldn't it be better if you were to play the bomb site for retake? Once you let them in, you can just lock it down easily. Or if your opponents are on an eco, is it better to try and hold the site killing all 5 players rushing you? Or is it more consistent and desirable to maybe play from CT with your turret, while picking off people trying to cross into lane? If you were to go for the first option here, you may have killed a few players, but that leaves your team against a retake where suddenly your opponents have a gun to play around. But a retake against a few pistols and maybe even a Spectre here and there isn't the scariest thing, but if there's a Phantom or Vandal in play, it could go really poorly and turn around quick. So if you end up deciding that a retake is more effective, then you have to think about a setup that helps achieve that goal and does so effectively. On Ascent B, that would probably look something like placing your turret on top of the 2 barrels in CT to get early info on anyone trying to come out main, and perhaps in Molly and or Alarm Bot in the corners of Boathouse. One of your Mollies unlocked, just so you don't have to worry about that angle when retaking, and boom, you have yourself an easy retake. And now, whenever you check the economy of your opponents at the start of the round, or notice that you have your ultimate ready, you can now run this setup. And one of the amazing things about protocols is that protocols are well defined and give you a practical game plan for different situations. That means that better players who have already built those protocols can easily pass down the knowledge given a chance to assess a situation. Luckily for you, that's where we can help. We got Radiant and Immortal level coaches on ProGuides.com that are happy to help share their gameplay secrets and protocols for different situations so that you can skip the trial and error part and just get a leg up on your opponents. And of course, they can also help you out with any other problems that you might be facing as well. We even have courses written by pros like Scream and Ten, so if you're serious about ranking up, you gotta check us out. Now before we move on to the more advanced protocols, let's quickly go over our question of the day. In today's question, we're asking you, how do you feel about the lack of updates in the past few weeks? Riot likes to make a big deal out of keeping their games fresh, and I think we can all agree that they did a pretty solid job on this last patch. But since Episode 3 started, VCT qualifiers were happening, and Riot gave their team a week break to cool things down a bit. We haven't seen a major update in a couple of weeks because of that. So, how are you feeling about it? Are you already missing the stream of updates, or have you finally gotten some time to settle down and actually learn this meta? Either way, let us know in the comments down below. Now, at their core, protocols are made by following a simple question that everyone asks themselves at times. What if X situation happens? The idea is that by taking time to consider the question and find potential solutions, you'll be able to create an answer that fits your playstyle and your beliefs on how the game should be played. All protocols pretty much originate from this thought process, whether it's for your own use or for a team environment. That's also why protocols are different with certain teams depending on their playstyle or game philosophy. For some teams, the protocol for a full eco round is to slow default to see if the enemies give up any information for future rounds. Whereas for other teams, full eco rounds are opportunities to rush a site and figure out their site setups. But of course, none of the protocols are arbitrary by any means. Both are perfectly logical approaches to eco rounds, but function very differently. This applies to your approach as well. Typically, by engaging with the thought process of problem-solving potential situations in-game, not only do you build up a stronger game sense, but you also create solutions that are based on your game sense and logical reasoning as well. Now, when it comes to protocols, what really holds true is the more, the better, as long as you're actually comfortable with the practical side. Valorant is a difficult game with a lot of factors to consider, and there's tons of things that you're constantly thinking about. So the more things that you sort out beforehand, the bigger the advantage that you have when faced with situations you've already planned for, as long as you practice your responses and know very well what your plan is. So now that you got a decent idea of what protocols entail and how you can use them in-game to speed up your decision-making and then focus on the actual game itself, let's talk a bit about a common concern that people have when they first learn about them, and that is predictability. When people first hear about protocols, a lot of them think that perhaps it's not the best idea since you become easy to read. And while that may hold true, especially in the higher ranks in pro play, where counter-stratting plays a big part, it's not something that you should massively worry about if you're just playing average ranked. First of all, nothing is stopping you from setting up multiple protocols for the same common situation. Playing the exact same way each time might indeed be a bit predictable, but you can make changes to how you play it depending on how your opponents reacted the last time and what you think will work best. The idea is to build a set of answers for different situations that can happen, and that doesn't just stop at regular in-game scenarios. You can very well plan for the enemy's reaction to your protocols as well. If the first time you spammed smoke based off of your alarm bot, the next time you could molly and swing instead. Or maybe play from a different angle. Perhaps you use your mollies in a different way or put your turret in a new position. Regardless though, being more predictable is easily worth the advantages that you get from solid gameplay. Playing quote-unquote standard is somewhat predictable, but that doesn't mean that it's better to play completely random. Having consistent protocols, set reactions, and plays is a big step in finding consistent success in the game. Protocols are how you make the game a lot more organized for yourself, and are also key to improving as fast as possible. Of course, you could always just grind away thousands of hours playing the game and naturally gain some intuition on protocols, but that's much less efficient. The reason is that if you have protocols and you find that one or a few of them aren't even working, it's a lot easier to just go back into a custom and find a solution, compared to just playing and finding the solution in random situations on the fly. Overall, you could still say, yeah, perhaps protocols are a bit more predictable than playing randomly, but again, you'll be creating a lot more high-impact plays, and you'll have a lot more structure and organization for yourself, which frees up your thoughts to let you focus on the shooting. But even then, we've only really touched on one side of the protocols, and that's the defensive ones. On attack, or even when making plays or going for aggression on defense, there's also a lot of protocols that you can create for more success. One of the biggest ones in that aspect is how you want to approach rounds against different buys. If your opponents are eco, for example, running into site without information might not be the best idea, as there's quite a good chance that it could be stacked. Similarly, doing the complete opposite and spreading out thin, having one player each taking care of a different extremity, isn't the best idea either, as that can mean that one player gets rushed down or simply overwhelmed by multiple opponents and then gives away a gun. So a basic protocol could be that you stay in small groups and slowly try to find information as to which site you and your team want to hit. Again, at least if your opponents are on eco. But then there's also agent-based protocols. If you're Arena, for example, and you want to take control of a main on a scent attack, how do you want to approach it? Should you use any utility? What utility should you use? And what if they can afford ops? What if they're eco? What if they use utility themselves? Those are all questions that you need to consider and then react accordingly. And finally, there's also the predictability factor. If you're a Sova, for example, you should think about how you want to take control of different areas, how you're going to react to different types of utilities that you might face, and also how to make sure that it isn't obvious what you and your team are planning. Just to give you an example, the amount of Sovas in rank that I've seen using their drone or recon dart in the exact same way every time is kinda horrifying. If you only ever use your utility when your team is readily waiting behind it to execute, then using your utility is a clear giveaway as to where your team plans on going, and you should expect your opponents to notice as well. If you're a smoker and you only ever use your smokes when you plan to take a bomb site, well, that's not exactly hard to recognize either. Instead, try to incorporate different fakes and ways of taking map control, just to make sure that your opponents don't know exactly what you're up to. To be fair, everybody, protocols are something that we could go on and on about, as there's an infinite amount of things to cover, but we've only got so much time in one video, so we cannot cover everything. Just remember that when Riot added Killjoy into the game, they made her catchphrase,
"Relax, I've already thought of everything,"
a clear reference to protocols, which are so extremely key to playing a utility-heavy agent like her. Anyway, we hope this week's episode of Improvement Saturdays has helped you grasp the concept of protocols and helped you realize its immense importance. But if you're still struggling, don't worry and perhaps just book a session with one of our coaches on the website. They can definitely help you out. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like it. Also sub to the channel so you don't miss our future uploads. But most importantly, best of luck on the grind, everybody. I'll see you in the next one.